this is a very important conversation because we're starting this new agency, and not too often do we get to be a part of the, the idea of building something from the ground up.
I mean, you talked a lot about, technology systems and things of that nature. I'm just kind of curious on, you're going to be requesting up to $4 billion in 2 years, and just kind of wondering how that works out between everything else.
So we are taking positions over into the new agency. They will come off of the budgets and the head counts for those other agencies.
Yeah, I always, get concerned with creating new government agencies, and the government bureaucracy would go down. I'm hopeful that that's the case here. So when I'm looking at your website, and he referenced it a little bit, there's 5 major categories, and one of the major categories on there is racial equity, and it has links to different things, books and resources, 103 things white people can do for racial justice, talking to children about racial bias, rocking and rolling, caring for the mental health of infants and toddlers, anti-racist baby, how to be anti-racist, white fragility, why is it so hard for white people to talk about racism? How are these things appropriate for pre-K?
So these are not resources for pre-K and the delivery of services. That likely comes without seeing what you're looking at from our first report by a group that helped us convene families and used a human-centered design approach, which is essentially what I said, which is how would families across the state answer the question, I have equitable early childhood services, I have the services I need to achieve outcomes. That report was driven by our partner who brought families together, and those resources come from that partner.
Okay, so we're not employing these books and resources as part of our programs in our preschools. How can we be sure of that?
Just like the State Board of Education, we're not administering programs and services now or next year, but just like the State Board of Education, what curriculum, what books are used in the classroom is a local control issue. It will stay a local control issue.
Maybe you weren't aware, but last year we actually passed a law where if you didn't comply with specific books, that the governor was going to stop funding. So funding those libraries and school libraries. So I just want to make sure you understand that the local control aspect of materials is actually being threatened by the governor withholding funding. Our concern in many of the questions we're asking here is that we're a little concerned that the federal government may look at what you're doing in the same exact capacity as the governor did to libraries, and they will withhold billions of dollars of funding from you, which will put our taxpayers on the hook in the future. Do you understand the correlation? I
understand. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So when we're asking these questions, it's not specifically to the DEI or to the philosophy, Mr. Chairman. It really falls on the purse strings and who will be making up the difference between what we receive from state taxpayers, and if we threaten that at the federal level, who's on the hook for that? And I think that's where a lot of our questions are coming from, and our fear is, not fear, we see a direct response of what the governor did to libraries to what the federal administration potentially may do to the state of Illinois.